Let's talk about tropes and why they get a bad rap. My name is Seth. I'm a full-time fantasy author. I've written like 25 books, published most of them, and I make these videos because there are a lot of authors who aren't making it out there, and I don't want you to be one of them. Today we're going to be talking about tropes. Now, tropes are everywhere, and when I say everywhere, I mean literally everywhere. If you look at all of the best-selling books, they're just packed with tropes. But at the same time, authors seem to have this sort of visceral reaction anytime they read a trope or a trope is brought up. They have this sort of cringe, and a lot of readers do too. So what is with this discrepancy where authors and a lot of readers say they don't like tropes, but all of the best books are filled with them? First, let's talk about what a trope actually is. A trope is just shorthand for something else. It's usually a word or a phrase that's used figuratively or metaphorically in order to convey a sense or a feeling or a piece of information that the author doesn't want to have to spell out. In storytelling, a trope is similar. It's a specific type of story that we have heard over and over and over again so many times that we immediately understand the context of it. A great example of this, and probably the most overused one in modern storytelling, is that of the chosen one. The single individual who is responsible for saving the kingdom or the empire or the universe or whatever, and they're the only one who can do it. They are special and unique in some way. Usually they start off very low, and then they eventually come into their power. And we all understand this story so well. So why is it that we keep seeing it over and over and over again? Well, it's because it's really easy to understand. It's really easy for someone who's picking up the book or watching the movie to figure out what's going on without needing a ton of extra context. But the problem is that because this is shorthand, because it's easier to just write the features of a chosen one trope than it is to come up with a brand new story and spend all of the time and effort explaining all of the context to the reader, it gets used again and again. And because of that, it starts to create fatigue. These tropes get rehashed, and because of that, both authors and readers tend to just sort of sigh when they run into them, because it's like, okay, here we go again. See, humans are connection-making machines. Everything we do in life is based on the pattern recognition that our brain creates. So anytime you see something, your brain is constantly referencing back to other things you've seen in order to try to understand it. So when you see a really nice car pull up in a parking spot, your brain immediately starts looking for patterns in your memory. And then you immediately start assigning characteristics to the driver of the car itself, the whole situation, based on your past experiences and the information that your brain has, right? So this shorthand allows you to make snap judgments really, really quickly. And the same thing is happening when somebody picks up a book. As they open it up, their brain is looking for these patterns, these tropes, that will allow them to connect the story they're reading with their entire experience. But what excites our brain is new patterns. And so if you're not getting new patterns, if you're just getting the same old story, then your brain's just not going to be able to engage with it very well. And that's where this sort of fatigue comes in. You might have experienced this, where you have an author who you really like, and you read their first book and it's fantastic, and then you read the second book and it's great, and then you read the third book and it's pretty good too. And then you read the fourth book and you realize that you've just read the same book 4 times. And your brain just sort of checks out. Conceptually, you love this author, you love their world, you love everything about it, except that it can't hold your attention. There's simply nothing to explore. And that's because of the overuse of trope. They're really helpful, and we'll talk about that in later videos, but they can become very dangerous if we use them too much. So if you've ever picked up a book and just thought, man, this is really cliche, that's the trap that the author has fallen into. They've taken the easy way out and they've overused their tropes. This is a particular issue for a lot of new authors because they're still in the copying stage of mastering their craft. But that's okay. We all go through that stage and we all have to work through it. So are tropes bad? No, not entirely, but they can be, and they can really drag your writing down. The more we write, the more we begin to understand the tropes, the more we see how we can pull them apart and add that complexity that is going to engage our reader.